like to welcome everyone tonight to the City Council regular meeting. It is Tuesday, March 4th, 2014. The schedule as it will be is an invocation by Matt Ballgard from Church of Celebration, after which I'd like to have a moment of silence and solidarity with our fellow police department in Phoenix for the officers they lost. So if you'd all please stand for a moment of silence after that, after which Chief Stahl will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Matt.
Thank you. Father, thank you so much for the people that give their lives to public service. It is a thankless job often, and whether that's a police officer, city employee, elected official, Lord, those that administrate the process oftentimes go home at night wondering where they're going to get the energy or the emotional strength to continue to make decisions that impact other people. And I'm asking, Lord, that you would give great wisdom beyond the capacity of their own intellect, Lord, to make decisions on the behalf of the rest of us. I love what Romans 13 says. Paul the Apostle said that, God, that you set the authorities in motion, Lord, for the protection of your people. And so I'm asking, Lord, is it your greatest desire to bring those who are far from you close, that you would use our elected officials and all those who protect us and take care of us and speak on our behalf, God, to have the wisdom to legislate and administrate that process, and we trust you for that. And I just want to say a special prayer, Lord, for the families of those who lost loved ones yesterday, and Lord, we just give our hearts to them right now and ask that you would be with their families in a very powerful a way that they can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear, and we trust you for that. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. And Chief Stahl, thank you. Thank you all for participating. This time, move to the roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Chapados?
Here.
Councilwoman Gussie? Here. Councilmember Kimball?
Here.
Councilmember Potter?
Present.
Vice Mayor Farrell?
Here.
Mayor Price?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you very much. At this time, we have no proclamations, acknowledgments, or awards, so we'll move on to item 4 of the agenda. This is the report from the mayor. At this time, a few things. Had the opportunity to play along with Vice Mayor Farrell in the Pathway Legacy and City Annual Basketball Tournament here this week. It was a great opportunity to go and try and defend our title. I think we ran into some problems. The Vice Mayor and I were picking out our championship rings prior to going to this event, and in our three-peat, we were defeated by the Pathway Pumas, and so many congratulations to them. They did a great job. So we look forward to that challenge next year. Also wanted to let you know that Copper Sky will be opening on March 15th. That's just a little under 2 weeks from now. That is a phenomenal facility, and we're going to have a program and tours and wonderful events to come out and participate in. So please put that on your calendar, March 15th, and it starts sharply at 10 a.m. and will run until about 2 p.m. and there'll be all kinds of things going on, food and activities. But you really want to see this location. It is a phenomenal facility, and so many thanks to all of you and to everybody who's put their blood, sweat, and tears into this. Also wanted to announce there are a few vacancies on the Merit Board, the PRL Committee, which is the Parks, Recs, and Library Committee, also on the Industrial Development Authority Board. These are the opportunity for citizens to serve in the city capacity as volunteers, and in so doing you learn a lot about given areas and specific locations of what those specific committees do. So I would encourage you all, if you are interested or would like to get to know more about your city, please contact Vanessa Borres. She's our city clerk. She's right over here at the table, and she can give you all the information, or you can find it on the website. And last but not least, Banner Health has been doing an activity here for at least one weekend, and I know we'll continue on March 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd at 9 a.m. over here at the Banner Health Center. They're doing something called Walk with the Doc. And it's a good opportunity to come out and get to know your physicians in the community, while also improving your health with this free event. Obviously, it doesn't cost anything, but they've had lots of entertainment. Councilwoman Gussie and some members of the audience were able to go here in this past opportunity, and they had great reports on it. So we encourage you all to attend if you get a chance. But again, you have March 1st, 8th, and 15th, and 22nd to attend. So that concludes at this time the report from the mayor, and we'll move on to a report from the city manager.
Honorable Mayor and council members, 2 items to report. The first item is a letter that I'm forwarding to the Arizona State Library in support of the Marker Space program. It's a combination or a partnership between our school district and our library. And I'll just read to you what the Marker Space does. It combines manufacturing equipment, community, and education for the purpose of enabling community members to design, prototype, and create manufactured work that wouldn't be possible to create with the resources available to individuals working alone. So I think that will be a wonderful program for our community. The second item, I will be out of the area in Washington, D.C. starting Wednesday, tomorrow, and returning on Friday. And during my absence, Vanessa will be in charge.
Great.
Thank you. That's all I have to report, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Okay. That concludes item 5. Now that moves on to the call to the public. This is the opportunity for the public to approach the podium. You have approximately 2 to 3 minutes to address the City Council. Just so you know, we ask that we please keep things on the up and up, as well as the fact that the City Council typically does not respond to these inquiries. That is not as it is not agendized. And so, but we are always listening and want to hear your thoughts on the variety of topics that you might choose to share with us. So we offer the time. Please. And please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Justin Thornton. I'm the President of the City of Maricopa Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 78. I won't take but a minute of your time. I'm here tonight to talk about 2 things. The first is to thank Councilmember Kimball for his continued support of the officers and the police department here in Maricopa. It's no secret what has happened. It's been in the media. And despite that, he's continued to be professional and offer his support towards us, and we appreciate it, so thank you. With that, I'd like to issue a friendly challenge, if you will, as a citizen of Maricopa, and ask the council and mayor to continue to do the good work that you have been doing, continue to lead us in the direction for growth and public safety and a very high standard of living. You've all been doing a phenomenal job doing that. And I'd like to focus on those issues rather than the political agendas that can get caught up in election years. With that, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Through a happy set of circumstances, I'm able to make this announcement tonight. Council just gave direction to staff to approve a policy for the public using the council chambers, and I was the first request, so I kind of started those dominoes falling. But I want to announce that on Saturday, April 5th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. here in the council chambers, I'm going to be presenting the very first Maricopa New Resident Reception. It's a 2-hour informal fun event that is open to any resident in Maricopa. It's going to be a very brief overview of some of the key departments in the city. I'm also going to be involving some of our key utility and other service provider stakeholders. And it's a way just to meet new people. You'll walk away with a lot of great information. You'll hear from our police and fire departments, our community services department, our city clerk's department, and also economic development. So 8 to 10, Saturday, April 5th, here in the council chambers, open to all Maricopa residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Henry Wade, 42581 West Shemile Drive, Maricopa. I've been out in the community, of course, talking to people about different issues, and one of the things that kind of keeps coming back at me, and the reason why I'm coming to you about it, because I kind of had a direct link with it as well, and that's the Copper Sky. And the even having conversations with the senior community, but that they are really not very happy with the outcome of what may have happened, what they were looking for, particularly the fact that it was called a multi-gen center. I've even had conversations with some seniors that have pulled away from that concept of it being a multi-gen center. And so, yeah, that's the way it was sold. That's the way we planned it when we were working in planning and zoning. That's the way you expected it to be. And so I just wanted to share that information with you because I think it's important, particularly when we talk about getting membership, getting people to come and participate in the program, using the facility, and how important it is overall to us. So I just share this because it was on my heart. When I'm talking to the senior community, I know that was one of the things that we were really focused on when we were first considering bringing that facility here, is that it would be a multi-gen center. And one of the hardware things that has been expressed to me is the lack of an indoor swimming pool. And the fact that the seniors would not be comfortable with swimming in a pool that's outside if they would prefer to have the ability to have an indoor pool. That's an operational issue, whatever, but more importantly is the fact that the senior community, some members, not all, but some members of the senior community are pulling away from the center because they no longer consider it a multi-gen center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Price, Vice Mayor Farrell, council members. Good evening, my name is Scott Bartle, and I'm with inmaricopa.com. And March 15th is, as you mentioned, Mayor, a big day for the city with the grand opening of Copper Sky. And it also marks the 10th anniversary of the very first story that we published, then as 85239.com. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you, as well as your predecessors and current city staff, as well as past city staff who have been supportive of our efforts over the last decade in serving Maricopa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Gina Hall, and I've been a citizen of Maricopa since 2006. I have a lot to say here, so I'm going to talk as fast as I can. Is nothing off limits anymore? Our country was founded on basic values. Generations learn from the last by example. When politicians or public leaders fail to lead by example, those watching think it's okay. Our young people are watching. They are watching to see if it's okay with us adults, and they notice when few things are off limits. Taking a stand for what is right ethically is challenging in today's climate where everything seems to be okay. I am here today to stand before you, but feel that I must. I'm terrified of public speaking, so my voice may be a little bit shaky. First, I'd like to thank the council for your wonderful service and commitment to our young, growing city. You've listened to the citizens on the Copper Sky issues and painstakingly researched the job history before hiring the new city manager. You stood strong and ensured the right thing happened with prior Councilman Marchione and the alleged sexual harassment of female employees. Like many other Maricopa residents, I have been sitting from the sidelines and watching the happenings of our young, beautiful city. As a responsible citizen in our community, we must expect a high standard of integrity of those in office. And we cannot continue to think that it's okay for a public leader to drive while drunk. Mr. Bridger Kimball consciously made the decision a year ago to drink one beer after another, knowing full well he had to drive home that night. I question his judgment. Mr. Kimball endangered the lives of others on the 347. His blood alcohol content was 0.285, that's 3.5 times the legal limit. A person with a blood alcohol content that high should be in a stupor. They have a loss of understanding, impaired sensations, possibility of falling unconscious or loss of consciousness, severe motor impairment, and memory blackout. A 0.3 could be very easily lethal, deadly. Mr. Kimball clearly had a high tolerance for alcohol. This number was not published in the media until a year later, so no one really knew how drunk he was. From the police report, I quote, "I observed the pickup truck almost strike the concrete center raised median 2 additional times and overcorrect and almost strike a light-colored minivan." Later at the police station, another quote, "During the breath test, I witnessed Bridger biting the mouthpiece, plugging the breath hole with his tongue, and not exhaling in a manner to successfully complete the test." I understand that people make mistakes, and Mr. Kimball stated in an angry email to me he believes he has paid for his DUI in a variety of ways. I do not doubt that. However, he pled guilty of lesser charges, taking advantage of a loophole in the system. As a voter, his evasive actions and attempts to distract others from the facts from then until now do not sit well with me, and I have lost confidence in his ability to serve as a community leader. I work in healthcare. My employer has a behavioral standard that applies even outside of work hours. If an employee is arrested, it's cause for termination, and my employer has acted on that on several occasions, not to mention what the Board of Nursing would do to me. However, this process of termination in Mr. Kimball's case is a long, expensive, time-consuming process of a recall. He has not done the right thing by resigning. He has not given the position of councilman the respect it deserves by stepping down and admitting he's not the right person for the job right now. That is not to say that he won't be the right person down the road. He has not earned the respect and the confidence of the community by doing what is right here. Imagine how much respect people would have for him had he stepped down and admitted his mistake, stating he no longer is qualified for such a high, respectable position in our community, that he has some things to work out personally but hopes to serve again in the future. My intention is not to pick a fight with Mr. Kimball or beat him down anymore, but to ask him to take responsibility for messing up and humbly step down as councilman, because he is not the mentor or the leader that we need right now. If the community and the city has to pay the heavy price in time and dollars to recall Mr. Kimball, it is on his head and no one else. We stand strong leading this effort to preserve the reputation of council member, community leader, and public servant, to set a limit and an example here forward. Just to wrap up quickly, Jonathan Riceley in his article, The Degradation of America, stated, "Today, if we really look long and hard at history, we can see many examples of what is happening in our once great nation happen repeatedly throughout history. If we are to have any hope of saving this country and our way of life, we all have to stop letting people do what feels good and start doing what is right, just, and moral. Drinking and driving is off limits for anyone, and especially public officials. Mr. Kimball no longer represents me as a voter, therefore I support a recall." Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Caitlin Goldner, and I am the president of the MYRC SAD Club, Students Against Destructive Decisions. Recently, we have been looking at the substance issues that are affecting our peers, and we discovered that underage drinking is a problem. It is not only the #1 drug used here in Maricopa, but across the country. Some people think it's because people that don't know the legal drinking age is 21. However, in our experience, most people do. The problem is that kids don't know why. So we have started the Y21 campaign, a campaign to start educating kids on why we have started why the legal drinking age is 21, so that they think twice before they take a drink. Some of the consequences include potential cognitive defects, unplanned and unprotected sex after drinking, physical and sexual assaults, higher incidence of tobacco and other drug use, hangovers, poisoning and overdoses, secondhand effects to others, and injuries are the leading cause of death of young people between the ages of 1 to 44. Alcohol is the leading contributor to these accidents, per the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. We know that the city of Maricopa has been working to help with the problem, and we want to thank you for the following programs: Park Patrol, Block Watches, Bike Patrol Unit with Maricopa Police Department, Police Department DUI Enforcement, SRO officers at the high school, Comet, provided rides on New Year's Eve, Youth Alcohol-Free Activities with Recreation Unit that teaches kids about dangers of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. Supporting MASH with prevention in the classroom for 6th graders, and supporting the MYRC to provide alcohol-free supervised activities and prevention programming for 6th to 12th graders. My fellow SAD members will be sharing you with the facts about the risks of underage drinking. We ask that you continue to support the programs that help combat this issue and educate your kids and the youth in your sphere of influence. Together we can change a belief that it's harmless and just a rite of passage. As Ralph Hinkson from the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism says, we cannot treat our way out of this issue. It's not just alcohol consumption, it's the environment for which consumption takes place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Oh, sorry. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Kobe Weimer. National data tells us that by age 18, 70% of all teenagers will have tried alcohol, and 45% of 12th graders have used alcohol in the last month. This is more than tobacco and marijuana combined. Here in Maricopa, per self-report in the Arizona Youth Survey, 52.5% of youth have tried alcohol in their lifetime. 75% of high school seniors have tried alcohol in their lifetime, and 37.5% of 12th graders have had alcohol in the last 30 days. In 2012, there were 6 DUI arrests for youth under the age of 21 and 103 arrests involving underage alcohol violations.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Michael Buckner, and I am here to tell you a little bit about binge drinking. This is per national data. 1 in 5 teens binge drink. Only 1 in 100 parents believe their child binge drinks. In Maricopa, 13.6% of teens report engaging in binge drinking. 18.8% of seniors report binge drinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Good evening. My name is Aaliyah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Aaliyah Perez, and I am a member of the SAD Club. I will be telling you about the results of 2012 National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Those who start using alcohol while young are at greater risk of developing alcohol problems as adults. In 2012, adults who had first used alcohol before age 15 were more than 7 times as likely to experience alcohol dependence or abuse as those who waited until 21 for their first drink. 15.2 versus 2.1%, including poor academic performance. In Maricopa 2012 AYS survey results revealed that young in 8th grade took their first sip at the age of 10. 10th graders reported age 12 and 12th graders reported age 13. This means that kids here were starting to try alcohol earlier and earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Leah?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Genevieve Bernal. I'm the Vice President of the MYRC SAD Club. The National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, underage alcohol use also can alter the structure and function of the developing brain, which continues to mature into the mid to late 20s and may have consequences reaching far beyond adolescence, including poor academic performance. Here in Maricopa, CASA completed a community needs assessment. This included key informant interviews that were conducted with the school administrator, counselor, and psychologist. All stated that the effects of drug and alcohol use by youth is in this community directly impacted learning, the development and lack of interest in education. They can't focus, unable to maintain good attendance, grades slip, and they become credit deficient.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, City Council members. My name is Kennedy Glenn, and I'm the treasurer at the MYRC SAD Club. According to the National Risk Behavior Survey, binge drinkers are more likely to drink alcohol and smoke marijuana while in school. Per AYS data, 18.1% of students in 8th, 10th, and 12th grade report having been high or drunk while in school. According to the Center of Disease Control, underage alcohol use increases the risk of academic failure, increases the risk of illicit drug use, and increases the risk of tobacco use. It can cause range of physical consequences from hangovers to death, from alcohol poisoning to suicide, from traffic crashes to homicide. Annually, about 4,700 people under the age of 21 die from the injuries involving underage drinking. These deaths include people who are not the ones consuming alcohol. Here in Maricopa, 3.7% of teens in 8th, 10th, and 12th grade report that they have driven a car when they have been drinking. 7.9% of high school seniors report having driven while under the influence. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Councilman, and City Council members for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Kennedy. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Tim Hall, and I'm a resident of Maricopa. I want to bring to light or describe the things that have transpired in the last week. I'm married to Gina, and she was starting an effort to get a recall for Bridger Kimball because of not agreeing with the DUI and trying to say that we have a higher standard. So I want to discuss some of those things that happened, and because I'm disturbed about them personally, and how it actually transpired. Last Monday the 24th, 11:30 a.m. approximately, my wife sent out some emails to friends and acquaintances about taking a stand on expecting high standards of public leaders. And this is my wife's first time to try and take a stand in public and put her voice forward, and so, yeah, it could be a little bit scary. Later that night, about 12:30 a.m. in the morning, she received an unsolicited email from Bridger Kimball. The email started out with short, angry, defensive remarks. It then continued with sarcastic remarks. It then concluded with his name, Bridger Kimball, with Caswell shooting range, and then a cell phone number underneath. To help put this into context, we did not know much of Bridger Kimball. We don't know you as a person. We know you're on the city council. We've never talked to you before. And of course, we didn't know where you worked. But of course, we did know you're in the city council and you had a DUI 14 months ago and pled guilty to a lesser charge than what you should have received based on your BAC. Again, it was to help paint this picture for my wife. This is her first time speaking out, telling her friends, and then she receives this email from Bridger. Late at night, I think I fell asleep, but she was there reading it with the email signature of your name and identifying that you were associated with Caswell shooting range. She sent 2 emails back to you. The second one said something, and by the way, all these are public record because they were forwarded to all of the city council. But in her second email she sent, it was not her intention to pick fight or throw stones, but to voice her opinion. And so at this time, her mindset had become preoccupied that she had made you angry. And she did not know you and your intentions. But being a mother, she now had feelings and thoughts that now may have taken this too far. What did she get herself into? What was the point of Bridger in the email making it known that he is associated with the shooting range and carries a gun?
Mr. Hull, I'm sorry, we've run out of time. If you could take 30 seconds and wrap it up, that'd be great. Thank you.
So, as a result, she didn't go to work and had a panic attack and had feelings of fearful and intimidating feelings had come over her. She then later went to work, and she, in the following day, she told me, at which time I became mad and angry about it, and I called Bridger about it, left a message and no response. At which time it probably would have been good, at least you would have alleviated those fears that she was having. Next day, or no response, so I ended up making an appointment with your business owner and talking with her, and a good talk, and we said it would be all right if you gave us a call. And we did talk, and you did say you were sorry for that, but you didn't think anything was threatening about it. A couple things I have, and I know I'm taking a little bit longer than I should, but why are you replying to my wife at that time of night, unsolicited, and not taking into consideration what emails verbiage can provoke? Those provoke feelings, everything we do. Seems to me that there should be clearly marked, we should use city council emails versus just personal emails.
Mr. Hull, we're going to have to ask to kind of wrap it up. You have several other members waiting to address the council as well.
I feel that this is inappropriate and unprofessional to address citizens. We've never conversed, and so you're doing this late at night and leaving her to dwell on these thoughts and not alleviating. So I'm sorry that this happened. I think there needs to be, you guys need to use protocol, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hull.
Good evening, Mayor Price, Vice Mayor Farrell, and council members. I didn't intend on speaking until about 10 minutes ago, till I realized what was going on with Mr. Kimball. And I wanted to say that, I've known him for nearly 7 or 8 years. And the first 3 years, I didn't even like him until I spoke with him. One thing that I've learned is that Bridger is a great person that has given a lot to this community, watching it grow. I've lived here for pretty much 10 years from the day ground broke. And one thing that I've learned about citizens, not just locally, but nationally, we put our politicians in a higher category, which we should. But one thing for sure is there's not one person in this room that's perfect. Not one person, I believe with all my heart, because I'm guilty of it, has never driven without having a few drinks. I have. Well, I have, and I'm here to admit it. I'm not a politician. I'm not running for elected official or an elected office. But when I had a daughter 3.5 years ago, I changed. Okay? I changed my life. I changed my lifestyle. And to point out one person because of a mistake he's made, I don't think is fair, because there's folks in here who claim they've never had a drink and driven. But I'll tell you what, you don't live a life of perfection. There's only one person that does, and that person is in my belief, is Jesus Christ. So before we all start pointing fingers at somebody, look at yourselves in the mirror. Bridger's given a lot to this community, and I publicly stand with you. And if there's a recall, I'll be the first one behind you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Price, Vice Mayor Farrell, members of City Council. I too was not ready to speak tonight on behalf of this subject, but I stand against the recall for many reasons. One, it has been almost a year and a half since the incident. It is a political year. There's a lot of elections going on, so I think this whole recall initiative is political in nature. Councilman Potter has come to our house and talked to my wife Brenda and I about this idea about the recall. We both told him that we didn't think it was a good idea. A couple of things to think about when you're doing a recall election. One, you have to have a minimum amount of signatures, which in this point is 850. Now, I've run a couple of campaigns, and typically, whatever the minimum is, you want to go 1.5 times above that. So if you do the math, you're looking at about 1,300 signatures. Two, you have to have a candidate to run against that recall candidate. Right now, there is nobody in place, especially after the last article I read. Councilman Potter, you even stated there's no candidate at this time. We also have, I think there's up to 14 candidates for council that is running for 3 seats now. So to hold a recall election during the time where we're already going to have elections in the fall, you're going to have a candidate to either step down or find somebody, a 15th candidate, to go into this recall. And third is you've got to look at the cost that this recall is going to cost the city of Maricopa, which I believe is upwards around $30,000. I believe council would agree that there's probably better things to use that $30,000 for than a recall election during an election year that we're already going to be filling 3 seats. I think the people that want to stand up against Councilman Kimball can do that in 2 years if they choose to do so, because he would be up for re-election in 2016. Councilman Kimball actually was arrested. He paid a lot of money in fines. He voluntarily spoke to a graduating class at Maricopa High School, talking to students to tell them, don't drink and drive. Don't do what I did. I made a mistake, Richard Kimball said. We all make mistakes in life. That's how we learn. And as Scott said earlier, there's only one person that could judge anybody, and that's Jesus Christ our Lord. So I think this is a judgment issue. I think it's gone and come and gone. I think the opportunity is to move forward. I think the best years of the city of Maricopa is ahead of us, and I don't think that this is a good idea to drag a councilman through the newspapers. And I know Councilman Farrell's probably not happy that his name's been dragged up again in the newspapers as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to refocus our attentions and our best focus forward for the best thing in the city of Maricopa. This recall doesn't benefit the council, doesn't benefit the mayor, doesn't benefit city staff, and it doesn't benefit the citizens of Maricopa. So I ask Councilman Potter, as I did a few weeks ago, I ask you to reconsider and drop this recall campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Honorable Council, ladies and gentlemen, I too did not intend to speak tonight. I am Bridger Kimball's father. In the mid-70s, I raised my right hand and I swore to defend and protect the Constitution against all enemies, domestic and foreign. I've been carrying a badge since the mid-70s. This young man and his mother and we raised him to respect the public, to take personal responsibility for his actions, and to give back to his community. What you may not know is Bridger Kimball went right out of high school. He was still in high school and joined the Marine Corps following those principles. He was in the JAG office, he was a firearms instructor, and he started Caswell's as a stock boy. Giving back to the community is all he had in mind. The email that you're talking about is his signature from his email address, and he worked his way up from being a stock boy with those principles of taking responsibility for your actions, being fair, firm, and focused, to being an owner of not only Caswell's, but C2 Tactical. And his email address has nothing to do with it. This young man has ridden with me many times in homicide and in patrol. And he knows in his heart that I would have arrested and booked him as well. And so I thank you for your time, and I just want to let you know that I do support him, and I always will, not only because he's my son, but because I know he was raised with the correct principles of giving back to his community and accepting responsibility for his actions. He did. Anything about his case being moved from our court to a different court, the judge had to move it because he knew Bridger. Bridger also had a lockout device in his car. He's paid his dues for this, and this recall, in my opinion, is just absolutely a waste of time and money. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else call the public? Seeing no one, I will give the chance to respond to Councilmember Kimball, if he so chooses.
Thank you all for your comments, for and against me, as all of you know. Given the nonsense tonight, I did get a DUI in 2012. Shortly after that, the local media did an article, several articles, and at the first council meeting that I had the chance, I stood up and took responsibility for my actions, and I apologized to the community for what I had done. I also said in that apology that I was going to move forward with my case as expeditiously as possible. I was charged with DUI. At my first court date, I went into the judge and I pled guilty. Since then, I've done jail time, gate fines, and all the other things that are associated with DUI, having to go to classes. One of the most insightful things that happened to me was me actually sitting through an ad impact panel. I would suggest all you young ones in the audience, if you haven't done that, that would be something. It is a little graphic, but it was very enlightening to me. I don't take what I did lightly. I do apologize for what I did. I apologize at the time for bringing that to the city of Maricopa. I made a bad judgment. That is one bad judgment call. That's one night in my life I really wish I could take back. And I feel as though I've paid for it. Not only did I follow through with all the things that I said I was going to do and the things that I was ordered to do, but I've also volunteered my time, not only to the high school, but I've also spoken to other individuals in the community and telling my story. I'd be glad to tell my story when we have time to anybody who would like to listen. It was very enlightening to me. It was very humbling. And again, I apologize for what I did. Obviously, I support myself. I do not support recall because I think it's definitely not needed. But that being said, I appreciate all of your comments. And Mr. Hull, I appreciate the phone call yesterday. As I mentioned to you, you was never intended to threaten me. And we discussed that at length last night, and I feel that we had a very cordial conversation again. Community, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate you coming out. And again, I apologize for what I did.
Okay. At this time, let us move on then to item 7 of the agenda. We'll move on to the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve 7.1 and 7.2? I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This time we have a public hearing, section 8.1. This is PH 14-02. The mayor and city council shall hear public comment regarding a request to amend the San Travasa PAD ordinance. That's 05-14, approved on November 15th, 2005. So with that, go ahead.
Minor correction, Mayor, if I will. It's a public hearing for zoning ordinance 14-02.
I apologize. It's incorrect in the on the agenda. So the item is listed as PH 14-02. That is correct. Let me reread that as public comment regarding a request to amend the San Travasa PAD ordinance. It says 05-14, but it should say 14-02. Is that correct? Okay. So 14-02 approved on November 15, 2005. Okay. Is there any staff comment at this time? Okay. With that, it is a public hearing. If you wish to discuss this particular topic and address the council, you may approach the podium. Seeing no one, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Do we have any corrections from City Clerk? Okay. We're good? I'm sorry?
That's correct, that's posted. I think he just had a concern with the PH number 1402.
I did.
That's just an automatic number that the system gives it.
I see. Okay. Gotcha. Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Before we receive consent agenda, I have an item of 9.2 speaker card. So I will ask council with their permission to pull item 9.2, and we will move to the consent agenda without 9.2. That'll be the first item of business on the regular agenda. So that being said, can I have a motion to approve consent? All right, that is a motion to approve consent without 9.2, by the way. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, this takes us to item 10 on the regular agenda. Before we get to 10, we'll do 9.2, at which point Rachel LaFalle would like to speak on this item.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Rachel LaFalle, and I just have a few questions regarding the application of slurry seal to streets for the $500,250. And our local road maintenance budget is $1 million. This is a little more than $500,000. Just wondering what's covered in this $500,000. How much of our city streets will be impacted? How long must we continue this process? Like if there's a distance in the streets that are being covered? And then how much road is being sealed and how long does it last? Because it's my understanding that the last time this was approved was back in 2008. And is this something that every 8 years we're going to have to incur a $500,000 cost?
Thank you. Bill, would you like to address those?
Through the mayor and members of the council, slurry seal is a type of emulsion. You can actually build a road directly out of it. Most often it is sprayed on roads as a type of rejuvenation. It fills in or it can help fill in cracks. The short answer is how long will we have to do this? Forever. We have to do some type of maintenance onto our roads. We could not do slurry seals, we could do crack seals, and then do well, eventually we could do a mill and overlay. That's more expensive, but we could do it less often. There's various things. If we don't do anything to the roads, eventually they become like one of those old airstrips out in the desert that gets alligator cracked and eventually falls apart. So there's a variety of things you can do. A lesser maintenance more often every year. A standard program that I've always dealt with is that every road gets rejuvenated once every 7 or 8 years. A slurry seal is a relatively cheap way to do that. I don't have the exact number of linear miles of road that this particular contract will get us. I can get that for you, but I don't know how many that is. We could do something more extensive, less often. We could do a complete rebuild. So it's a bit of a balance that way. Does that answer the question?
Ms. LaFalle, does that answer your questions?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Partially, because as far as the coverage is concerned, if it's only covering a few miles and we have to continue to, I understand that it's something that is preventive maintenance, and that is acceptable, but depending on the amount of street that's covered, I guess that's the bigger issue for that cost.
Would that not go through standard purchasing? Is that how we do that, or is that by contract? I mean, that's what the real question boils down to, is how are we deriving at that dollar figure?
It did go through standard procurement. I think it was a bid. We talked about this before it came up, and it looked like technical questions, so I jumped up.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The purchase of this product is based off of a cooperative contract that was competitively bid in Chandler. For us to go through the process to do it ourselves would take a lot of time, and we would miss the window of opportunity to apply the slurry seal, is my understanding. And so the Development Services Department calculates how many miles they need to cover, and then what's the cost based on that cooperative contract.
I see. Okay.
Any questions?
Ms. LaFalle, any further questions on that? Council, any questions? Just for the record, I do understand that this is an issue of maintenance versus ripping it up and doing it all over again, and there's obviously money to be paid either way, but one is significantly more expensive. So if you do nothing, you get nothing, but if you do something, you can make it extend the lifespan of it and have to pay a lot less in the long run. So Mr. Wade also had a speaker card on this item.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. One of the questions that she was really trying to get at, we're both trying to get at, is how often does this have to be done? To my recollection, we had this discussion in 2008 with slurry seal, and so we're looking at 6-7 years. But more importantly, with that $500,000 that is being used to do this repair at this time, looking at a budget deficit going into 2014, is it something that we can extend for that period of time, for the additional period of time, until we do actually have a surplus in our budget as opposed to going into it with a deficit?
Good question. Bill, do you have an answer for that? I know, again, it comes down to regular maintenance versus putting it off, and it can become exponentially more expensive, but would you like to explain?
The general, through the mayor, members of council, the general answer is we could defer maintenance. There's some maintenance that has to happen, potholes, for example, imminently. We could scale this back and do less. Most likely, what that means is we're accepting risk, and that we will have to spend proportionally more later, not just the same amount later, but actually it gets worse. You have to do more. Sometimes the lack of money is worth doing that. Sometimes we defer maintenance. This does not mean we're necessarily doing the exact same it's not that we have to do every mile once every 7 years, but we will have to bring forward a contract like this periodically. It doesn't mean that the entire city gets done once every 7 years.
Right.
The short answer is I could scale back. We could do less maintenance. 2 years from now, we'll be dealing with a bigger problem. We may have, a lot more money. I don't think so, but we might, and then we might be willing to do something really big and some big mill and overlays and chip seals, which will cost 4 times as much. So it's kind of a trade-off. Okay.
Right.
Honorable Mayor, I have one question for Mr. Fay. The resources, where's the funding source for the slurry seal project? Is that coming out of capital?
It's coming off of, if I recall correctly, it's coming off of a mix of the half-cent street sales tax, CIP capital, streets capital. I don't have all of the numbers off the top of my head.
I believe, you may have a better answer for me.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
City Manager Rose, Mayor, Council. Yes, it is. The funding for this project is coming out of the capital improvement project funds, the half-cent sales tax, but then also the transportation fund and her funding.
And as I understand it, that funding is specifically for capital improvements?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Honorable Mayor and Council, certainly we could reduce the amount of funds that we are recommending for the street maintenance I wouldn't recommend that because you run the risk of more severely injuring those streets. The purpose for slurry seal, one of the purpose, certainly preventive. It fills the cracks. It reduces or expands the lifetime of a street. It's much more expensive to go down to the base and actually rebuild the street. And so we're trying to get as much life out of those streets as we can.
Absolutely. Yes, Councilwoman Gusson.
Can you explain briefly what the difference is between co-op or going out for bid? I think there's a significant difference there in cost that the public should be made aware of.
A cooperative, well, all of these contracts go out for bid. A cooperative contract is one where one entity went out to bid and then someone else uses that bid selection. In this case, the city of Chandler did a public bid and took the lowest bidder, and within their contract documents, there's what's called cooperative language, and there's state law and attorney general opinions to the effect of another public agency can use, as long as that first entity used the Arizona revised statute, the appropriate procedures, a second entity, in this case the city of Maricopa, can use their bid to get where we're going. At the biggest level, it's the state contract. The Department of Administration does a giant bid of a whole bunch of services and products that everyone in the state uses. Less commonly is different cities use, if Phoenix or Glendale has a really good price on something, the city of Maricopa, without going out to get our own bid, can use their bid.
So in layman's term, we get a better price if we go co-op than if we were to go out for bid on our own?
No, not necessarily. We don't bid it ourselves, we use someone else's bid. There isn't a guarantee that we're getting a better price. There's no indication that we're getting a worse price, though. It's just a different bid. We could, at our own expense and time, we could bid this ourselves. To be fair, I've seen bids come in higher when we bid them, not here in Maricopa, at my previous jurisdiction. We've bid them and I've seen prices come in higher, I've seen them come in lower. So it is publicly bid, though.
That makes sense. Yeah, so I mean, as it stands, I mean, I'd stand for a motion to approve. I've been the one that has talked to many old ladies that have come into my office and have decided that their street has not received enough maintenance in the past little while. I knew this is on rotation as our city continues to get larger. This rotation has to get bigger. It's one of those unfortunate things, and the conversations that I very often have with ADOT is how do you maintain the life of these roads when you know they're 220 degrees in the summer and they're expanding and contracting, and you can choose to do nothing and it saves a few dollars here, but then you're paying thousands of dollars later to replace the whole thing, and it's not so much later, it can be a year or two. And so if you can expand that and get 5 or 6 years of extra lifespan out of it, it's really money well spent and just kind of an investment. So I'd be willing to approve this, and if I can have a motion, that would be great. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the item?
I just want to say I support it on behalf of all the little old ladies out.
Well, I wasn't specifically referencing you, but thank you. Motion and second. Yes.
Yours, the last point triggers a question. Relative to residential streets, where there are vehicles that have not been moved, how do you get around that when you need to do that street? Do you call the public safety people to tow that vehicle, or do you come back a second time?
Through the mayor, Councilman Brown, I have not dealt with that here in Maricopa yet, so I don't actually know what our procedure is. In my last 2 cities, we put out flyers, we put things on people's cars starting about 2 weeks ahead of time. I know we had a procedure it actually was a little bit awkward. We would tow people's cars, not to a tow lot, but tow them out of the way, and then people would call us and be angry because they couldn't find their cars. But I don't actually know what our procedure is here. I guess I should get you more information before I answer.
All right. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Did I hear a nay? Did I hear a nay? Yes or no? No. Okay. No nays. Just making sure. All right. So it passes unanimously. On to item 10.1. So this is an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Maricopa, Arizona, amending the zoning requirements as described in zoning case ZON 11-04 and PAD 11-03 for San Travasa, Planned Area Development, PAD, for approximately 372 acres, generally situated south of Bolin Road and north of the Maricopa Casa Grande Highway, SR 238, within the City of Maricopa incorporated limits. The parcels of land are situated in a portion of Section 36 of Township 4 South, Range 3 East of the Gila and Salt River Base and Meridian, Pinal County, Arizona. This item is for discussion and action. Yes, Vice Mayor Farrell.
Mayor, I recuse myself due to a conflict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, so we will go ahead and have Dana come forward.
Thank you very much, Mayor, council members. It's my pleasure again to be before you. If we could start this little presentation. Excellent. And as you mentioned, this discussion this evening is for approval of Ordinance 14-02, case files ZON, zoning case 1104, and PAD 1103. Just held the public hearing. Three things I'm going to quickly cover on this brief presentation is overview of the site and some of the zoning history. This is an amendment of previously approved ordinance 05-14, and then also quickly address the proposed changes and then public input and the recommendation. This project is a joint venture between Eldorado Holdings, CAC, Central Arizona College, as well as the Ak-Chin Indian community. Quickly orient you around the property or the site. Basically, like I mentioned, the original approval was made back in 2005. Since that time, many things have changed in this area. And this area has actually been identified or developing more towards a regional destination, a regional service, a citywide service location. And why I say that is you can see the site as it's currently proposed in this ordinance. I'll just quickly point out that the Legacy Charter School is this location up here. It was a part of the original zoning approval, however, not a part of this request. It's outside of this request. And then also you can see the gym site is the one vacant unfarmed piece of land there that was not a part of the original request, which is a part of this rezoning. Hence, that was the purpose of the joint venture and development agreement between the joint venture parties. Basically, Ak-Chin owned that gym site. Eldorado made the land swap to allow for the Central Arizona College to consume a total 218 acre parcel on the north side, or all of the northern portion of the property. So, as I mentioned, Walmart, as well as other commercial, is developed to the west of the property. We have Banner Health now located there at the southwest corner of Porter and Bolin Road. Then the Legacy Charter School, residential to the north. You see the beginnings of construction of CAC College on the property. And then City Hall is developed, and a larger complex there to the northwest or northeast of White and Parker and Bolin Road intersection, adjacent to it. Moving on, this is a depiction of the existing PAD land use map and the proposed land use map on the right-hand side. As I mentioned, that northern portion has been replanned and is mostly consumed, besides Legacy Charter Schools, by Central Arizona College. So really what we're looking at is approximately 124 acres south of the Central Arizona College property. Of that acreage, as you can see from the existing approved PAD, we had about 31 acres of commercial approved in 2005 along Maricopa Casa Grande Highway. That's still the same land use proposed with this amendment. However, the geometry of the parcels have changed slightly. Then the more substantial, I guess, or significant changes to this PAD is the location of the Ak-Chin parcel, which is the CB2 site located about mid-block. It's about 42 acres. The entire project, or the entire PAD, is 372 acres. As I mentioned, 218 of which is developed and maintained under a political subdivision of the state, and not in complete jurisdiction of municipality, the city. And then the two TR parcels would be the other more substantial change, which are basically planned. TR is our transitional zoning district, the same zoning district that we have here
over City Hall. That's our most recent, I guess, zoning district, and it was developed to become some sort of offer some mixed-use opportunities within the city, and in this case, that's what is proposed. There are 3 different development options, I think, presented in the PAD narrative, going from high-density residential, attached housing, up to 20 units per acre, all the way on through commercial office, medical support services, educational support, facilities, other things to help continue to provide that regional service nucleus that's developing in this area. The existing PAD provides for about 1,500 total units. This proposed PAD with these modifications is entitling with this request for approximately 1,700 units at maximum build out. That's maximum multifamily scenario. We know that the applicant also is looking for other types of uses, and then potentially smaller lot or unconventional type of housing product as well. The PAD language also amends some of the development standards of the community as well as listed permitted uses. It's very specific to encouraging mixed-use development, integrated development. As you can see, the backbone roadway is defined by a arterial road called San Travaso Way, with those 2 other collector roadways extending over to White and Parker, one of which is Farrell proposed to enter the property and then curve north up around the CBD parcel. And then there's a better view of the site plan, existing complete CAC site plan and build out. And then you see these land use parcels identified with their acreage. And then finally, in 2010, the City Council approved a general plan amendment to support this exact request, or a very similar request, being the public CAC property, commercial at mid-block, the mixed use, and then the commercial along the frontage, all in keeping with the general plan. Also, this approval, should council wish to approve this amendment this evening, it would also be in keeping with the IGA that we have with CAC to rezone their property to the appropriate zoning district, being I think we're proposing TR where colleges are allowed. So that said, staff is recommending approval. There was a neighborhood meeting held on January 24th. We had limited turnout and no expressed opposition. Staff has not received any opposition to this proposal. Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the council unanimously approve this request on February 10th with the conditions stipulated in your staff report. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Council, questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kimball?
Yes.
Councilmember Potter?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes?
Councilwoman Gussie?
Yes.
Councilmember Chapados? Yes. Mayor Price?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. That concludes our agenda for this evening. We appreciate you coming. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. And with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.